Hey everybody, Steven here, and today a very special video because I have Obraxis from Unknown Worlds, also known as Scott. Thank you so much for doing this for me. I really appreciate it.
No problem. I'm glad to be here.
Um, so the game is launching Friday. How's the dev team doing right now? Is this kind of crunch time? Everybody's working around the clock?
It's actually a really interesting time because there's a team at the company shepherding Below Zero to Friday who are working nonstop every day, just, checking last minute things, getting the PR ready and all that stuff. And then there's another section of the company which is actually all done with their tasks on Below Zero, and they have nothing else to work on Below Zero. So they're off working on potential new games, and then there's another team at the company working on the next game that we're working on. So
Dang,
it's
that's a
it's a
lot
very
going on.
interesting time. Yeah, there's a lot going on right now.
So how big is the team right now? Because I know the company started out quite small, and it seems like it's getting bigger and bigger.
Yeah, so I think we're hitting around 40 people now. We've hired like I think around 10 more people since last year or something like that, with more coming on board soon. So yeah, we're getting up there now, but we're still small enough where we can still say hi to each other and know each other's names and things like that, which is great.
Is that kind of the plan with the company to keep it tight knit like that and not go to some of these dev teams where there are hundreds and hundreds of people?
Yeah, so I believe Charlie said hire when it hurts. So we're trying to only hire people when we find that we're struggling in a particular department, or we just need someone to fulfill this certain task, especially as we grow and do more console stuff internally. Um, uh, yeah, it's generally we try and hire only when we need to.
Okay, good deal. I actually have a ton of questions that I'm going to try to get to all of these as best I can, but I also understand that there's going to be certain things that you just can't comment on. And it's either something that you guys have decided you don't want out in the public, or you're going to wait till after release, whatever it may be. So if that's the case, yeah, just let us know. But before I get to that, I do want to kind of hear your background story, how you got into the industry, and then ultimately how you ended up at Unknown Worlds.
Oh well, that is a bit of a story. Have you got time for
Yeah,
it?
yeah.
Okay, so myself personally, I'm an animator by trade. I have 2 degrees in animation and multimedia. And when I finished university the second time, because I liked punishment, it seems, I went off and I worked on kids' TV shows, TV ads, and a couple of movies in London in the visual effects arena. Um, and but during a lot of this time, so around 2002, I played the first natural selection game, which is by Charlie Cleveland, the co-founder of Unknown Worlds. And it basically changed my life because I was at university at the time, and the game was unlike anything that I'd ever played before. It was a first-person shooter, but had strategy in it, where like there's a commander on each team. Like there's an alien team and there's a marine team, and each had a top-down view commander view of the entire gameplay, and could drop items and things like that. And I'd never seen that before. And that was a mod for Half-Life One. And Charlie worked with Corey Strader and Max and a bunch of the founding people of Unknown Worlds to make this mod. And I got involved in playtesting that around 2003, four, something like that. Just voluntarily playtesting and helping out. All the while going through university, doing jobs, things like that in the animation world. And yeah, around 2008, I heard that they were making NS2. I was keeping an eye on it, and I got involved in playtesting for that around 2009, 10, and I became the QA lead on NS2 voluntarily around 2010, and then basically shepherded NS2 to final release.
That's awesome.
And yeah, it was really great. And then, of course, I knew about this underwater iPad game that was potentially being made. And I just finished a job in London animating fish, so it made absolute sense that I got brought on to animate some fish, and I just never left.
Dang, that's nice. I've seen the documentary, and I'll make sure there's a link for that in the description. I can't remember who made it, where it actually like showcases the process from the early stages where yeah, you're seeing Subnautica on I think an iPad, but it's just very rudimentary. You're just seeing like blocks moving and then how that kind of built up to the final game. And right now for Unknown Worlds and specifically Subnautica, what's your role at the company?
So right now, I'm an animator and generalist, is what I like to say, because I have done some animation on Below Zero, but I've also done, uh, well, even since before Subnautica, I was doing a lot of different things at the company. So, for instance, the cinematic trailer that went up recently, I was the editor on that, and I I did I did all the previs for it. In fact, I've done all the editing and all of the previs for all of our cinematic trailers for Subnautica. Um, so I got to help out there. Um, I've got to help out with the community quite a lot until we hired Donya. And I was QA lead for the studio until last year when we hired Rose, who's taken over as QA lead. And I am desperately trying to get my teeth into various game design stuff and just trying to expand my horizons creatively at the company.
Nice. And yeah, shout out to Donya. Because I remember when she reached out to me, I was just making videos like updating people on the game and somebody from the and I think actually I heard from you first. You joined a live stream or commented on something. I was so blown away by that. And that's one of the things that I like about Subnautica and the community and the devs is just how friendly everybody is and that you guys actually do watch the community videos, you listen to the feedback. And actually, when I think of the game, I think typically in terms of game devs, your name always comes to the forefront. And that makes more sense. Yeah, you're kind of the generalist handling everything within that. So when you start Subnautica, you finish that game. I know Below Zero originally started out as an expansion. Can you kind of walk us through how you go from this idea of like, all right, we're going to make an expansion to, all right, this needs to be its own full fledged game?
Yeah, so I think I'm hoping a lot of you have finished the first game. If you have, if you haven't, then spoilers. But if you have, you may have noticed that the player turns at one point while they're in the rocket to look at an icy area. So even at the very late stages of Subnautica development, we kind of had a feeling that we were going to do like some kind of Arctic expansion or something. And originally it was going to be for the original game. We actually ran into some technical difficulties with that because we were using a version of Unity, which meant that we would hit a certain limit in terms of like textures and things like that. Some of you may have seen this bug as what's called the Skittles bug, where you saw like everything suddenly go all multicolored and things like that. That was because
Yeah,
we actually
that
hit the resource limit of the engine. So we'd pushed the Unity engine version we were using to the absolute limit on Subnautica 1. And there wasn't really a way around that until something called addressables came in. And it was, I believe it came in towards it was starting to be developed or out in the public towards the end of development, but it was such a huge amount of work, it just wasn't possible. Um, and so with that in mind, we talked about it a lot, and it made a lot of sense to make it its own thing. Like if we can't expand on Subnautica 1, then what can we do? And it was like, well, we could do a small thing, like maybe a couple hours or something extra, just, give people a TV episode instead of a movie so we can see how it goes down. And then just because this is how we work, we start off with a small thing and it turns into a big thing. It happened on Subnautica. This small little underwater crafting game turned into this giant like 40, 50 hour monster. And the same thing happened with Below Zero, where oh, we could do this, oh, we could do that. And yeah, it turned into something a lot bigger, and that's when it moved to standalone expansion. And then towards like the middle to the end of that, we realized, oh no, this is actually big enough to be like a sequel kind of size. It's not a small DLC. This is something meaty for players. So that was the thought process from there. The great thing is though now because of all of the porting work that we've done with Shiny Shoe and Unity themselves on getting the game Subnautica 1 and Below Zero running on Switch, the new Xboxes and PlayStations and all of that, it does mean now that the addressable system is in both games, and we could, if we wanted to, add stuff to the original game now. So the porting stuff isn't just to port to another platform. It's actually setting us up that if we do decide in the future to expand upon any of these games, it's going to be much easier for us to do so.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I've run into that Skittle um, bug a couple times, and I actually did a video on one of them because it threw me off. I was like, "What is going on?" It seems like I'm in like a TV that's going on the fritz. Um, that was just a
Yeah,
weird thing to
exactly.
just jump in. It's like, okay, something's off here. Now with that addressables, one of the big questions I get is post Below Zero launch. I know you guys are going to support the game with making sure that if there's bugs, you're going to squash those. But now with the potential of adding things to the game, is that something that you're looking at maybe doing in the future? Not only adding to Below Zero, but Subnautica?
Yeah, I can't really say exactly what we're going to doing because we're still trying to figure it all out. We're trying to concentrate on getting getting the games out there first.
Yeah,
But in terms of support, we are going to support both games going forward. There is a internal team that's been set up called the Subnautica Live team, and that team is tasked with keeping the game running well, up to date, compatible, and potentially looking to see what we can do in the future with those games. So um,
that's
yeah,
great.
the games are supported, and it is a significantly large team. In fact, I would say there's probably as many programmers on that live team as there was on the original game.
Whoa, that's awesome. And with this, is this like when you guys start making that first game, you get closer to the end? Do you think at the moment were you thinking, hey, this is going to turn into this big thing with this huge following? Or was it like it didn't quite feel like that yet?
You mean on the first game?
Yeah, on the first game.
Yeah, I guess it only kind of hit us. Well, I guess I can only speak for myself on this, but it only kind of hit me like how popular and how big the game got towards the end of development, because towards the beginning of development, we're kind of fighting to keep the studio alive, and it was more of a case of we want to keep the lights on,
Yeah.
uh, that than anything else. And then as the game became more and more popular, it kind of went from, oh, what cool stuff can we do? What is the community responding to? This is really cool. And I think once you sit back after something's been successful, it's then you realize just what an incredible journey it's been, and like how many people appreciate it. It's hard to see when you're in the weeds and you're working really hard, like just to stay afloat. But now, certainly now, I think we just appreciate the fans so much more.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it's been really great to see, and we try and do as much as we can for the fans because we're fans ourselves. You know, most of the studio when Subnautica started had been hired from the community
Oh,
in some way
really?
or another. Yeah, so like all of the level designers are were hired from the community on Subnautica 1 until Kyle joined. And then I'll look, yeah, it's a lot. The studio is made up of people who are from the Unknown Worlds community. Absolutely.
That's great. That's awesome. And that is one of those things when I don't know who makes the decision, but for the first game, at what point is it the decision like, hey, let's try early access? Like, we need feedback on this game. And then to continue that to Below Zero, how does that go?
I think well, early access is in our blood because well, with NS1, that was just a mod, so anyone could join the modding team and get involved in the community. And with Natural Selection 2, that game, although it wasn't open source, all of the gameplay code was written in Lua, so that's all open source. So you could actually go into the game code, mess around with it as much as you wanted to, and it was encouraged for the community to do so, create their own mods, and there are loads of popular mods for NS2. And so when we were doing, and also we did early access before it was even called early access. We actually sold the alpha version of the game on our website of NS2 before it even gone anywhere. and said to people, you can play it now. It was just a shooting gallery. There wasn't even an enemy in it. It was
Oh
just a
wow.
shooting gallery. Then it moved on to testing multiplayer code, and it was terrible at first, but it got much better very quickly. So we've been doing early access for over a decade now. When it came to Subnautica, it was an absolute no-brainer. Once we kind of got to a certain stage where it was ready to show the world, that's when we were like, right, we're going to open up our Trellos to be completely open. We're going to open up our bugs to be completely open, so you can look at everything. Um, and it was just absolutely natural for us to do that with Subnautica. And again, with Below Zero, it just made absolute sense because we want to listen to player feedback, and we will change stuff if enough people shout and say, hey, we really don't like this. We'll absolutely hear and consider it. And we're going to try and encourage that going forward with as many of our game projects as possible, because I think that's just an advantage from having players interact and be passionate about your work that other studios would be encouraged to do. So I think if they were to do that, I think they would get a lot of benefit that we do.
That's great. And my first thought is I'm because yeah, you guys listen to the community feedback and just the openness with the game. And my story of how I actually started playing Subnautica was my son was obsessed with watching Corey Kitchen play, and usually he watches those videos and I'm like, whatever, and I kind of sit down with him and watch them, but the game just drew me in, and then all of a sudden I start playing it and I'm obsessed with it, and started doing some videos on it, and just blown away by the fact that I've been able to build a YouTube channel on this and then continue on to other things that I've wanted to do. And my big hope has been that in the future you guys would continue the early access, because I just enjoy covering your guys' work and everything that you do. And I also like how easy it is to go in there to see these changes, to look at Twitter and see that, oh, they've updated these things, go in the game, actually see it, and then communicate that to everybody. So that's been such a joy for me personally to actually see how open the development process is with this. Um, Another one, and I don't know if you
Great.
can actually answer this. It was what, year and a half, 2 years ago. Tom Jubert is the writer on the first game. He's more known for, like, in terms of writing, more mystery style, and it really fit with that game. He's on board for the second game, but then it seems like it's just not going to fit how you guys want it to fit with a linear story. What's that decision process like with branching away and Tom steps away and then you guys are looking around to hire a new writer? And then how did you land with Jill Murray?
So I don't know all of the details of that. But first of all, I will say that Tom and us are still friends. You know, there's no bad blood or anything like that whatsoever. Despite what you might read from various commenting people on Twitter, you'll probably see that Tom and I are Patreons of each other, and we'll sometimes message each other and stuff. Everything's all good there. With changing writers, it was just that, you get to a certain point where if something's not quite working, there's no one's done anything wrong. You got to try something else, and that's all that's happened. And with Jill, I believe Project Lead David put out a job advertisement for writers, and we had a bunch of really nice applications from a lot of different writers, and Jill did a really great job. And then we hired a couple more writers to help finish out the game, and Zaire and Brittany, and they did a great job as well. So yeah, I mean, I don't know a great deal about the process of the changing of the writers, but there's no bad blood anywhere.
Yeah, and that wasn't my assumption either. My assumption was Tom, he likes to write more that mystery style, and that made sense for the first game, and now it's switched over to this linear style story where there's more dialogue, and it was one of those things where it just wasn't the fit that it needed. And so to me as an outsider, that's what it seemed like, regardless of whatever I read on Twitter. It's just like, that makes sense to me. And then I know when you guys hired the new writers, is that something that Jill is like, hey, I need support staff? Because those two ladies were for helping with dialogue, correct? Somebody was trying to explain it to me like it's how a show works.
Yes. Yeah, on like a TV or show or something like that, you got like the person in charge and then of like all the story and the dynamics of the story and trying to map out the not kind of like a roadmap of the story and things like that and get everything in. And Jill did a great job there where she took everything in that we still had in the game and all of the things that we as a studio wanted to do and had her own ideas and kind of tried to put it all together. But the game is so big and there's so much to write in the game that, towards the end, there was still more stuff needing to be written, and it makes sense for us to hire some people if we need the help, so we hired Brittany and Zaire, and they did a fantastic job, along with Jill. So yeah, I think we've been very happy with what they've all written.
Yeah, and the voice work is another thing. I think we've heard that question so many times because you guys had to go through a handful of different voice actresses for the story. And that was something that was going on with COVID, correct? Like studios were shut down. You guys were having a hard time actually getting people to record.
Yes. So we changed the main voice actress a few times, and it wasn't always, and it was like the first person we had in, we really liked. But unfortunately, when it came to do what's called pickups, like line changes and things like that, she was just no longer available because she had another job. Because most voice actors have other gigs and
Yeah,
other
they
things
gotta
that
make
they're doing.
money.
You got to make money, yeah. So in that case, we auditioned someone else, and then they did a great job, and then I think something similar happened like for a third time or something like that. But we ended up having to change for a third time, and um, but we ended up on a really great actress, and she did a fantastic job. Um, but with COVID, it has been difficult because some of the voice actors and actresses they don't have home recording studios. Some of them they have always gone into the recording studio, and of course with COVID, when with lockdown, a lot of those studios were no longer open anymore. Some of them not at all. Um, Especially in the UK where we had the actor of Alan here, so he wasn't able to record his voice until the studio reopened months and months and months later. So COVID didn't affect us in terms of production on like the game side, the art side, and things like that as much as the voice acting did, just simply because the audio studios were closed.
Yeah, and you guys, in terms of a dev team, I mean, you're spread throughout the world, right?
Yeah, in so many countries now. We've got a few people in the States, in Canada, Russia. We have a bunch of us in the UK now, um, Australia. Uh, yeah, all over the place. We've got spread all over the world, and as long as you have internet, you can work from anywhere. That's basically the philosophy of the company.
So one of the questions I've had this the whole time I've played the game, and when I first learned, like, yeah, you guys are spread out all over. Logistically, with that, I mean, it's not a huge group of people, but it's a decent sized group. How does your week go? How are you communicating that things need to get done and people know that they're on point with the work and they're getting these tasks done? How does that actually work?
So we try and set meeting times that cover the most amount of time zones as possible, and we record all of our meetings as well. So if people miss them, they can kind of catch up on the recordings. And we usually on Below Zero we try to meet. I think it was every other day or something like that for a lot of the time, plus more meetings on top of that when other people in other time zones kind of mixed up um, were available. All of our tools are all remote based as well. Our versioning system is remote based, so you can work from anywhere as long as you have an internet connection. Um, so essentially, all you had to do to work at Unknown Worlds is, have your internet connection be decent enough where you can watch and listen to meetings and submit your work. Um, and that's basically it. We've been doing remote. Most of us have been doing working remote for longer than COVID. So when COVID hit, we But a lot of us were already in a position where we already had the setup all ready to go. And what that meant was, unlike other companies that kind of had to run and drastically, like, how are we going to do all this remote work with servers and things like that? Because we had all of ours already set up, all of the people who weren't remote in our San Francisco office were then learning how the rest of the company actually worked and were working remote. And we have now, in fact, become a completely remote company. We've actually closed our office in San Francisco and we're all working remote now.
Well, that's awesome. That's probably overhead that you guys don't have to worry about now.
Right. Yeah, exactly. It's
Uh,
expensive in San Francisco.
oh, that was my first thought too. Is like, man, real estate out there or commercial real estate, it's got to be crazy expensive. Um, so more questions specific to Below Zero. Was there ever a thought to make the world big like the first game, or was it always, hey, we're gonna actually make this much smaller?
Well, if you remember, this was originally going to be just like a few hours extra,
Yeah.
like a TV episode. So we weren't planning on doing a big area for the game originally anyway. However, as time went on, the world expanded. We've grown the world to be a lot bigger. We wanted to try and experiment and do a larger section on land, um, and try and contain the game in a much tighter space, because in the original game there's actually vast big areas of nothingness, which generally don't have a lot of content. So we wanted to see as well if we could make a world that's a little bit smaller, more concise, but have a huge amount more detail. And I think you'll see that when you if you play Below Zero for even like 5-10 minutes and then go back to the original Subnautica and kind of swim around, you'll see that it's so much more dense in Below Zero. Everything seems a lot more alive with plants and animals and things. Um, there's a lot less like dead areas in Below Zero. It's much more vibrant and alive, even compared to the first game. And I think that's something that we wanted to do with Below Zero.
Yeah, that's a question I hear often because people ask me a lot of questions on the videos, and that's always been my answer. Is like if you look at it, like the density of Below Zero, like is so much greater than the first game. And yeah, it does feel very alive, but you go into these small areas like the kelp caves and things like that, and you're moving around. And yeah, it just seems like it's such a vibrant world that you guys made for this game. Not to say that it wasn't vibrant for the first game, but yeah, it is just different. It's like you took the whole map and condensed it down and filled it out. And it's a gorgeous game.
Yeah, and shout out to our LDs, our level designers. They handcrafted this world from scratch, in Below Zero. It's not a copy paste of the first game at all. It's literally a from scratch world, and they did a fantastic job.
When I've watched some of the devs, I've watched some of Liam Tart's videos where he's on Twitch just streaming and he's placing stuff, and I was like, you're watching him do it, and it's very tedious because there's a lot of thought that goes into it, and it's interesting to watch.
Yeah, one thing that we do want to improve going forward is our tools internally, because we basically started Below Zero like 2 weeks after we finished Subnautica 1. We didn't have a lot of time to improve the tools. There have been some improvements, but not a lot. So I think going forward, if we ever do another Subnautica game, then we will make sure that the tools are there so that level designers can work even better and even faster than they were able to on Below Zero.
And that actually kind of answers one of the questions that I got on Twitter, which was, I mean, you've seen the feedback for Below Zero, and what's the approach to the next game if you do that next game? And I think that's going to be a big one for you guys, right? Improving those tools.
Yeah, so no announcements or anything, but we probably will do another Subnautica game at some point. We just don't know exactly when. We're going to take a little bit of a break and try some other games first. But when we do, I think we're going to start completely from scratch in terms of tech, engine, whatever. We'll decide when the time is right, whenever we do go for that.
And that's this is a hard part because I get these questions a lot too. With this, is like, if you are going to do a game in the future, are you going to go to Alan's homeworld? Are you going to keep character interactions? Are you going to keep land in this? These subtle things where I think you guys won't know that until you actually start that process, right? Because it could change between now and then, or you could start it and then realize you're going to go in a completely new
Absolutely.
direction. Yeah.
And a big consideration is, we're doing an internal retrospective right now where we're all kind of writing down our thoughts on how we thought the game did, how we performed on the game, and what we think could possibly be done in the future. So we're doing that internally right now. And there's lots of things that could determine what direction we go in. Is it a single player game? Is it a co-op game? Those have massive undertakings as part of those questions, and we have to think about that very, very carefully when we're going forward. But we're not thinking about it right now because we've got a lot of other things going on internally.
How often do you get the multiplayer question? I think every video I've watched of you,
Every
somebody.
second of every day, and it never stops ever. It's I think Donya will attest to that. That
Yeah.
we're constantly tweeted at, but when's co-op? When's multiplayer? When's this and that?
Yeah.
I mean, we did have actually internally all played the Nitrox mod for
Oh,
NS1,
nice.
so national for like Subnautica 1. We played it together, and because it was very interesting to see. Although it still had lots of bugs and issues, it was actually really fun playing with friends and doing stuff together. So that was really great fun to see.
Yeah, and I think that's the hard part because I remember watching you were doing a preview and Danya was asking questions of the Switch build, and that question came up, and it was like you have this story that's supposed to be you're stranded and alone on this planet, and the second you add multiplayer, that's a whole different game. It's not the same
Yeah,
game.
it
You're not
is.
alone.
You've got to think about it. Like, is it still lonely if it's two of you? Is it still lonely if there's three of you, or if there's like 10 of you or something? Those are questions that we may have to try and think about in the future if we do go down the like co-op route.
Yeah.
But as I say, we haven't quite decided how we're going to do that, and I don't think we're going to think about it for quite a while yet. We're going to settle down a bit, try some new stuff first, and then start thinking about if there's a potential for another Subnautica game, what that is.
And I know you mentioned that you're internally kind of reflecting and you guys are filling out stuff on what you think about the game and stuff like that. What's your overall feeling of Below Zero?
I'm so impressed with what the team has pulled together. Like, I think it's a quality difference above the first game, where it's almost like a console generation ahead in terms of visuals. In terms of gameplay, I think there's some stuff we've done in there which is very unique. I think it was definitely worthy of us trying to do some interesting new stuff on land. Um, I would have personally liked to get some more creatures on land, but that's just a me thing. Um, but yeah, I mean, I really enjoyed working on the project. I think the team really stepped up, and um, you know, when we released the first Subnautica, it was a single platform on basically PC and Mac on Steam. Whereas this Friday, we're launching Below Zero on 7 different platforms all at the same time, and Subnautica 1 on next gen, which is now current gen, and Switch. So, for a tiny team of 40 people, it's internally, plus our, the great partners at Shiny Shoe and Unity, it's a huge amount of work, and I can only celebrate what we've done.
Yeah, the fact that you guys were like, that was the thing. Hey, we're going to try and launch this on all of these simultaneously. I was like, that's a huge undertaking. And yeah, I'm excited to actually see it. I actually have my Switch version pre-ordered, so I'm excited to get that in Friday and then hopefully do a live stream if I can get my stuff working for the game.
I can't
With
wait for you to play the Switch version. I've been working on that for the last year and a half, um, trying to get working on performance, seeing where we can increase texture quality on Switch and things like that. So I can't wait for you to play both Subnautica and Below Zero on Switch. I think people are going to be blown away by just how good the game is on that platform.
Yeah, I mentioned this because I've timed it right because I'm going on vacation a couple weeks afterwards, and it's like I get to bring that on the plane with me and play it while I'm flying.
Oh, it's going to be so great.
Yeah. And what's the decision? That was one of my questions is like, what made you guys decide, like, all right, we need to try and get this on the Nintendo Switch, not only Below Zero, but we need the first game on there as well. What was that kind of internal conversation around that?
I think it first started was I think our fans have been asking for it for a very long time. Like, since we first it first launched people have been asking for it on Switch specifically. And for the longest time, we said, look, we just think it's going to be a huge amount of work. We don't know if it's even possible. We never said no, but it was always like, this is going to be a huge amount of work. And it turns out it was a huge amount of work. You know, Shiny Shoe and Unity and ourselves, especially Shiny Shoe, been working on it for nearly 2 years internally. Thankfully, you know, because Subnautica and Below Zero share a common code base underneath, it did make the work a little bit easier, but um, not like a copy paste job. It still required a lot of work. For instance, there's been a huge amount of code changes, shader changes, model changes. Liam did a bunch of optimizations on the original game to help bring the frame rate up. There was passes on. I can't. To be a list so long, I can't really say it, but it's like it wasn't just like a hit button, make Switch version, you're done. It was a huge amount of work for nearly 2 years by Shiny Shoe, especially with Unity and ourselves. And yeah, I just want to say thank you to Shiny Shoe because they put in a ton of work on that.
Was that one of those things too? You like, hey, if we're going to do this, we need another company helping us out because internally it's just going to be too much for us?
Well, if we wanted to get Below Zero out, then whilst also doing the Switch versions, then it made sense to talk to someone else to see if they have people available to work on it, because we didn't want to grow the company by like 20 people overnight. It just wouldn't make sense. So we had a talk with Unity, and in turn we talked with Shiny Shoe, and between the two of them came together and started to work together, and it was a fantastic relationship. They got with the code base really quickly, and players could actually see on the PC experimental version all of these optimizations as they were happening because they were working directly in our code base.
Yeah, I was hopping in every
So
now and then because
yeah,
I could see it, and I was like, I bet that's for the Switch. I was like, I wasn't 100% sure, but I'd hop in and I'd see subtle things. Like one of them you've mentioned, the pop in, and how you've changed that so it gradually does it more like you see on No Man's Sky. And that makes a huge
right.
difference.
So that little optimization was actually by Jonas, who's off working at another company now. But before he left, he worked on this piece of tech, um, and it really helped. And yeah, it transformed the game, I think. So it's very difficult to notice the big pop in anymore on the next generation versions on PS5 and Xbox One X or S, and also on Switch, and especially on Switch. I think people will notice that that the gradual fade in just makes the game feel so much smoother.
And that's actually one of the questions I had, and you've mentioned it, but I'll address it here because you're taking all of the updates that you've done for the Switch version. Obviously, you just mentioned it's going to PC, but it's going to go to the Xbox Series X. It's going to go to the PlayStation 5. Everybody's getting these updates, correct?
Yeah, so the Switch version, the PS5 and the Xbox One Series X and S will have the updated code base patches, so they will get that fade in tech and the better performance and things like that. We are going to be bringing those patches to the older consoles, so that's PS4 and original Xbox One or Xbox One S, um, hopefully later this year. Um, I can't give you an exact date because we don't know ourselves exactly. But the next plan is we're trying to unify all of the platforms to be running on the same exact version again. So those consoles will get the patch with better performance, the fade in, and all of that stuff. It's just going to take us a little longer to get to.
This is awesome. And for the Switch, can you release or tell us details on what's the resolution and what's the frame rate that you're going to be able to achieve with the mobile or the handheld version, and then when you actually place it in the dock? I did just watch the dock, and I actually reposted it on YouTube. It looked great.
There isn't going to be a massive difference between holding it in your hand and docked. So for SN1, for Subnautica 1, handheld, you'll be looking at a 720p image, and then its target is 30 FPS. It may drop occasionally if you built like a giant base or in a really taxing area or something like that, but it should always be playable. So, and then when you dock it, you get a little bit more performance. So on your TV, it will be slightly higher than 720p, and it will still target up to 30 FPS. So that's for Subnautica 1. On Below Zero, um, let me just, I'm trying to remember all the figures, in fact. We're still aiming for up to 30 FPS, and I believe Below Zero runs a little bit more consistently at 30 FPS. And then you it does run a little bit less than 720p on in handheld mode, but when you put it in docked mode, I believe it's targeting 720p at 30 FPS, up to 30 FPS, the same as Subnautica 1. And that's been a big challenge for us as well, because Below Zero is so much more graphically intensive. To have it be very, very close to Subnautica 1 in terms of performance on Switch, that was a lot of work.
Yeah, that's what I said. I was watching the video, and I think you just shared this, and I was like, I mean, it looks really, really good from what I was watching. So I'm just excited to actually get it in my hands and get to play it firsthand. But yeah, the videos have looked great on that, and I think people have to understand that it is different hardware. And you guys have put a ton of. I didn't realize it was 2 years. I thought it was like a year.
Oh, it was definitely more than a year. It's closer to 2, maybe not quite 2, but it was definitely like closer to 2 than than anything else.
Yeah. So how does the company deal with any type of backlash where you've changed something, you've put something in the game, or you've maybe removed something and the community is saying, "Hey, we don't like that." What's the process like internally when something like that happens where you're potentially making an adjustment or you're like you're going to stick to your guns on it?
Right? Yeah, we kind of had that on the old intro, the very first intro to Below Zero, where we had a big backlash from people saying that, oh, this is so strange, this is so different, this isn't like the first game. We want it to be more like the first game, and you know, we would talk about it internally, what we wanted to achieve. And we did, after much deliberation and talk, we did feel that it was maybe a bit too linear, a bit too far away from the first game. So we decided to change it. And we changed it a couple of times until we felt it hit the right spot. So we will listen to the community, but we will have a discussion about it internally. So the way I like to say it is that, we're the drivers, we're driving to a destination, but the players can just let us know if we kind of hitting the right turn or not. But ultimately, it's our choice to drive whichever way that we want to. But we will listen to our community heavily, especially if they become very vocal about something.
And you guys, and I didn't realize this, and I think I was an interview, and I think Donya was doing Q&A. The tracks, you pulled those from the actual community, and is there 5 in game?
Yeah, so I think there's 5 or 6 or something like that of community-made tracks that we really liked. That we contacted the authors and got them included in the game, all legally. It's all done. They were all very excited to be part of it as well, which is great. And a lot of them, because of that, have seen like their YouTube views increase and things like that. So like First Son, for instance, got a massive amount of people viewing his YouTube after being put in the game. So really, really happy about that. And anything we can do to like just encourage people to get involved in the community in other aspects, maybe even if it's not the game, like the music or something like that. Like go listen to Ben Prunty's soundtrack or something, just anything we can do to kind of encourage people to get involved is what we like to do.
Yeah, and shout out to Ben, man. He nailed this soundtrack. This thing is I've just put it on Spotify and just listened to it. It's an amazing soundtrack.
Yeah, I can't believe how many tracks he's done. I didn't even realize how many he'd done till I saw the track list. I was like, wow, that he's made so many, and they're all so good. So
Yeah,
impressive.
it's in the 40s, right? Because it blew me away when I saw. I was like, "There's no way that there are that many
I
tracks in
think
the
it's in the
game."
50s or something like
Is
like
it really?
55 or something.
Yeah, it threw me off. Yeah, he did an
Yeah.
amazing job. And ironically, I was listening to some of his music and didn't even realize it. I had it on playlists, and then his name popped up, and I recognized. I was like, "Holy smokes!" Um,
Yeah,
but
he's an incredible talent, and it's been a pleasure working with him because he also did a lot of the tracks for all of the not all of them, but like for a lot of the trailers as well. Like,
yeah,
and he's done a great job there.
with a relationship like that, do you think like, hey, Ben, somebody like we want to continue to work with him as we move forward, even on to new projects?
would love to work with Ben again. It just depends on the project. But you know, if something comes up that we think Ben would be a great fit, I think we'd be a we'd totally work with him again.
Yeah, awesome. Were there any of those that you guys kind of looked at, hey, these are from the community, we want to put them in here, but you had to kind of shorten the list, or maybe they were just cut because it didn't work out? Did you have kind of more that you wanted to add to the game from the community?
I'm actually not aware of that
Okay.
that one. Yeah, I wasn't involved in the music selection. I know a few of the people personally, but I didn't get involved in the music selection part.
All right. I only got a couple more questions because I know you got to go to another meeting. Do you think any of the old models that are unused could get new use in the future? Do you guys kind of hold on to that stuff? The Terraformer, the Transfuser, the Vesper? I know the Vesper got reused.
Yeah, so we did that with Below Zero, where we had some stuff left over from Subnautica 1 that we really wanted to use on Subnautica 1, but it didn't quite fit in any area. And then we're like, oh, it would fit perfectly in this area in Below Zero. Um, you know, like the spike trap, for instance, that was designed for the first game, and then I animated it, and then
Oh,
it
nice.
got, or I animated some of it anyway, and and it got put in Below Zero in a certain place and got reskinned, recolored, and to fit that area, and it fits so much better in Below Zero than it ever did in Subnautica 1. So yeah, for instance, we've got the ice dragon still that's it's been modeled, it hasn't been rigged. There's potential there that we could use that for something in the future because it's literally sitting there, just needs worked on, and um, a
That's another
biome
question you
maybe.
guys get asked all the time too, huh? Where's the Ice Dragon? Why didn't you
Yeah,
put it in? Why did it
Ice
get cut?
Dragon is very popular with fans. The
Yeah.
only problem is it's so big that it wouldn't fit anywhere in Below Zero, really. And it's so grandiose that we kind of it need its own area, like a proper themed area with stuff in there that's unique to that area. It's more than just okay, we have this model, let's put it in the game. You actually have to think it through from the beginning to end of okay, so is there an area that it lives? How does it live there? What kind of size and shape, what kind of materials are there, how is that going to play into the balance of the rest of the game? There's so much you have to consider. So yeah, I would love to revisit the ice dragon at some point. And there's a few other, you know, there's some concept art for some stuff that never got made that we would love to get done at some point, like some fish and things. um, but yeah, it's about doing with the time what you can, and making it as cohesive as possible.
Yeah.
And
I remember
if
when
there's
you
stuff
explained
left
that.
over,
Oh, sorry.
go on.
I was saying, I remember when you addressed it, it was in another interview. And I was like, when you finally explained it, because I was like, why don't you just put it somewhere? And you explained it like that. And I was like, that makes more sense where it's so big, you need room. It has to have a purpose. You could just throw it in there, but it's just you throwing it in the game. That doesn't quite make sense.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. You got to think it through, especially with something at the size that we want it to be. Like you couldn't take the ice dragon and then make it tiny and then put it somewhere. It just wouldn't make any sense. So
That'd look
it's
weird.
got to be, yeah, exactly. So you got to make it a decent size, which means it's got to have a big enough area and etc. etc. So got to think these things through. Um, but who knows? Now that we've got the Subnautica Live team, who knows what could happen in the future with
Wink,
Below
wink.
Zero?
So with this, what is your favorite creature, both for Subnautica and Below Zero, or if you wanted to do them individually?
Ooh, I guess my favorite creature in Subnautica 1's got to be the Reaper Leviathan, I think. Just because it was so iconic when we first put it in the game, and it basically transformed the company because of the Reaper being
Yeah.
in the game. So it like so many people saw it on YouTube, and then the game got so well known. So and it has such a visceral reaction for people as well when they kind of hear it and see it in the distance and they can't quite make it out, and then it comes straight for them. So I
Yeah,
think the
that's
Reaper for me on
intense.
Subnautica 1. And then I think my favorite, um, I don't know, is Alan a creature? I don't know. If Alan isn't a creature, then I would say the squid shark for me, in Below Zero. But if not, Alan.
Yeah, that character model, it's one of the things you play the first game, you're like, I wonder what these look like. And then you play this one and you finally get to see it. And I was like, they nailed that. That's so much better than I would have imagined it was going to turn out like. So shout out to who did the art on that?
um, The concept art was by, oh gosh, you're making me think now. I'll have to look it up.
Okay.
I will tell you in a minute. I'll see if I can look it up.
And as far as the Reaper, I'm not the over the top gamer. If I game, I'm more of a laid back gamer, and I know my son watches channels where they're yelling, and it's just not my thing. But I played VR and I did a video on it, and it's the first time like I've screamed playing the game. It's because I thought I was getting away from the Reaper, and I turned around and it snagged me, and I legit like just freaked out for a second. It had my heart going. So yeah, that's definitely one of my favorite creatures from the first game. Yeah, it is just so iconic. I do want to end with this. Like I said, I know you got to go. I know you can't talk much about the next game other than the fact that it's supposed to be turn based. Any idea of when you're going to be able to share more info on it and if it'll go into early access?
Can't really talk a lot about it. I can't say when exactly either. It is moving forward. You will hear about something in the future. I really can't say anything. It just that we're excited, very excited about it. The team's been
is it
growing
is
and
it
growing.
completely different than anything you guys have done prior to this?
Yes,
Okay,
definitely very
I'll
different.
take that.
Yeah, well, Subnautica was very different from natural selection.
Yeah.
So we're jumping between gaming genres again, but that's never a bad thing because it keeps you on your toes.
Does
Um,
that make you
and
nervous as a dev team to do that? To be like, all right, we're gonna just completely do something we haven't done before.
um, I think difficult one to answer. I think you just got to stay true to your vision, and then listen to see what people are saying about it. Um, yeah, it's been in development for quite a while, but there's a reason for that, and it's because it's going to be great.
Yeah, I'm
It's
excited.
being
I'm really excited to see
it's
what it
being
is.
designed by Charlie Cleveland, the original Subnautica designer. He's also designed a bunch of board games. Um, the Vampire the Masquerade board game that just came out was designed by Charlie and a friend of his. So it's got some, and it's got a lot of the. It's got Max McGuire on for technical lead, who's on NS, who wrote the entire Spark engine that NS2 is built on. It's got a lot of old hand Unknown Worlds people and a bunch of really new Unknown Worlds people who are being hired for it. It's got a really interesting mix of really good vets and brand new people to the company, and it's going really well. And hopefully, at some point, I will be able to say more. But we're very excited about it.
Well, awesome. Well, thank you so much for just taking the time. I know I'm a smaller channel, but that's what I love about Unknown Worlds and the dev team is that, yeah, you guys do take the time to even talk to a small channel like myself and to even answer people on Twitter or like literally go into the comments of my videos and answer their question directly. It's crazy. So I want to thank you so much, Scott Obraxis, for actually taking this time to do this for me.
No, you're very welcome. Thank you for having me. And yeah, let's talk again in the future.
Hopefully, yeah, hopefully around the new game that you have coming out. Fingers crossed on that one. So thank you so much again.
Yeah,
And May 14th, right? Actually, I had a
this
question last.
Friday.
Yeah, this Friday, and it was the last one. What is the launch window in terms of when does this actually hit? Because obviously that's going to be different depending on where you are in the world.
I don't actually know the time, but on PC, because you'll be able to, because a lot of console people will have it in their mail, and the first thing is like when they wake up on Friday. I believe it's during the live stream itself that it
Okay.
will go live on Steam, because Donya has a giant blue button on her desk in her office, and I believe she's going to press it, and it's going to go live then. So it will be during the live stream on
And do you know
PC
when
and
the
Mac.
live stream is?
I don't know the time off the top of my head.
No,
I
I'll
know
get
it's
it.
Friday.
Yeah, I'll get it because I'm
Yeah.
actually going to record a little bit past this to make sure I fill anybody in on anything that I missed. But like I said, thank you so much, Obraxis, for doing this for me. And yeah, I look forward to speaking with you in the future.
All right. Cheers, Steve. Thank you very much.
No problem. Thank you. Bye.
All right. Bye.
All right, so that's going to be it for this video. Sorry if I didn't get your question answered. I had a lot of people actually write in, one specifically about the purple tablet that I saw after the fact that I remember, I should have asked that. I think they actually answered this a while ago though, and I'm pretty sure it's because they thought if Alan is in your head, you wouldn't need a tablet because he can interface with that. I think that was one of the things that they brought up in regards to that, and it just didn't make sense to just need one tablet versus the first game where you have the purple, the orange, and then the blue tablet. So with this one, I think that was kind of the reasoning behind this. But I'm going to make sure all of the links that I can get for Obraxis are in the description, so you guys can find that there if you want to follow him on Twitter or Twitch or Discord or anything like that. And then they have a countdown right now, so I'm going to make sure that that link is in the description as well, which is the countdown for when Donya, I believe, is going to do the live stream, and then that's when the game launches on PC. So kind of a countdown to when it will be unlocked and you can play it on that. Everybody else will actually get theirs in the mail that day. So that's going to be it for this video. I'm going to do hopefully a live stream Friday when the game launches. If not, I will have a video up of my playthrough, and I'll start that series with some more exciting news on that video as well. So you definitely want to tune into that. And we only have a couple more days, and I know everybody is excited for this Friday because the game is launching. So I hope to see everybody potentially on the live stream if I can do that, but if not, just the comments and everything like that, and everybody just telling me what they think of the game now that it has been fully released on Friday. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you hopefully Friday.